Starseed, this transmission is being opened for a specific reason, and we will state it now. An order has been issued in your name during the last rotations of this plane. It is not a suggestion. It is not an invitation. It is not an ordinary spiritual message floating in the ether for anyone to pick up. It is a direct order, and it reached you at the exact moment you opened this video, because you have been identified. Your frequency has been tracked, measured, catalogued, and the Arcturian Council has concluded that this is the point where passive communication must end. If your body shuddered upon hearing that word, order, if something in your chest reacted as if you had heard that phrase before in some deep place in your memory, do not ignore it. We detected that reaction in real time. It is the confirmation that the transmission reached the correct receiver. You are not here by chance. And we will reveal, still within the next few minutes, exactly what that order contains, why it was issued now, and what will happen should it be ignored or executed. Remain on this channel, because the next sentence is the key for you to understand everything that has been happening to you over the last few weeks. The first thing that needs to be made clear is the difference between an Arcturian order and the thousands of spiritual messages circulating through the human field every day. An ordinary message floats. It touches the soul of whoever is open, passes through the mind of whoever is receptive, and moves on. An ordinary message has no fixed address. It is a broad transmission distributed to the collective. A spiritual invitation is even gentler. It offers a possibility and retreats, respecting the timing of the soul that received it. An inspiration is passive, a guidance is optional. An insight is a reminder. An order, however, is something else entirely, and that is what we need you to understand before anything else. An order, in the language of the Council, is a communication with a single recipient, a specific energetic stamp, and a set deadline. It does not float. It does not retreat. It does not offer. It arrives. That is why you could not simply scroll past and ignore this video as you did with dozens of other pieces of content today. That is why something inside you froze when the title appeared. That is why your breathing changed pattern in the last 30 seconds, even if you have not consciously noticed it yet. The body knows when it is receiving a directed communication, and your body has already recognized that this is one of them. An order is only issued under 3 very specific conditions, and we are going to state those conditions now, so that you understand the weight of what lies before you. The first condition is when the embodied stellar operative has remained too long in a single energetic point without perceptible progress. The second is when stagnation begins to compromise the timeline designated for that soul in that incarnation. The third is when the internal hesitation of the receiver is generating enough dissonance to affect not only their own trajectory, but also the collective field of which they are a part. If you are receiving this transmission, it is because all 3 conditions have been met simultaneously. All 3, not 1, not 2, all 3. This means, in practical terms, that your soul is being pulled back to the original mission line, and that the time for silent contemplation is over. You have been contemplated for far longer than you realized. You have been observed while you delayed, while you weighed, while you tried to internally justify why the time was not yet right. And the verdict has been issued. It is now. Not tomorrow, not when life gets better, not when conditions align according to the human standard of safety. Now. This order has been opened for execution, and that is what makes it different from everything you have received before. Before we move on to the specific reason for the issuance, you need to understand a concept that most dense humans never grasp, but which is engraved in your galactic memory from before this incarnation, and we are going to reveal it now. Every soul that agrees to incarnate on this plane receives a sequence of points called junction points. They are not phases of life in the human sense of the term. They are not ages, not seasons, not periods. A junction point is an exact energetic coordinate where 2 or more timelines intersect, and only one can be chosen. It is a structural instant, almost mathematical, in which the soul must position itself. That is why there are moments in your life when everything seems heavier than it should. That is why seemingly simple decisions carry disproportionate weight. You are not being dramatic. You are feeling the convergence field. And we are going to declare now what has already been confirmed by monitoring. You are exactly on one of these points, and not since yesterday. You have been on this junction point for weeks, perhaps for months, and the reason this order had to be issued is because you froze. You stopped before a door that had already opened for you, and you just stood looking at it. You did not turn back. You did not enter. You stayed, and every day you remain standing on that threshold is a day in which the timeline that was prepared to receive your next version begins to bend, to delay, to lose resonance. The pain you feel when you wake up without enthusiasm, that feeling of living a script that is no longer yours, that strange fatigue that no night's sleep resolves, this is the side effect of remaining still at the junction point. It is not common depression. It is not a generic lack of purpose. It is the misalignment between where you should be operating and where you are physically standing still. That is why your life seems to function on the outside while rotting on the inside at the same time. That is why you wake up some mornings with the certainty that something needs to change, and by nightfall you go back to sleep, having done exactly the same things as always. You are not weak. You are trapped at a point that demands movement, and you are trying to resolve it with contemplation. And with each passing day without movement, the distance between the destination field and the physical body increases, generating that dull discomfort you cannot name. Starseed, if you are feeling this right now as you listen, it is because the monitoring was correct and the order arrived at the exact right instant. That is why I prepared the Star Awakening Code for you. It is not an ordinary course. It is not motivation. It is a reconnection map for operatives like you who can no longer function within the dense pattern and need precise instructions to cross over. Inside it are the 7 Arcturian activations to realign your vibration, the 9 galactic memory keys to access what your soul already knows, and the 5 reactivation protocols to put the mission into practice without collapsing halfway. You learn to shield your own field, interpret the body's alarms, and navigate this activation without entering fatigue. The access is in the first pinned comment right below this video. If this transmission resonated, leave a comment with the word present. It is your signal of commitment and we will register it. Now we will move forward, because before you cross through that door, you need to understand exactly what has been holding you back. And the Council has already identified the 3 mechanisms. There are exactly 3 internal mechanisms that keep a starseed standing still before an open door. Only 3. It is not a long, vague list. It is a specific gear, and it works the same way in practically every operative incarnated in this cycle. We will name the 3 now, one by one, so that you can recognize which one is active in you and dismantle it before the order closes. The first mechanism is the demand for proof before action. It is the inner voice that says, I need to see some clear sign before taking this step. It is the human mind asking for a guarantee that the result will come before the effort is made. This is why you repeatedly wait for that conversation to happen, that opportunity to fall into your lap, that message from the universe to appear written in neon. And while you wait for proof, time passes, the door remains open, and the field begins to retract. What the dense mind does not understand is that proof never arrives before movement. Proof is generated by movement. The universe, and we say this as a constant observed in billions of trajectories, does not validate the path before the first step. It validates the step after it is taken. Whoever demands proof first never gets anywhere, because the very act of demanding proof is the manifestation of the distrust that prevents manifestation. The second mechanism is waiting for the perfect moment. It is the illusion that there will be at some point in the future a configuration of circumstances where everything is aligned without pressure, without risk, without discomfort, and that will be the right moment to act. Starseed, we need to state this with surgical clarity. That moment does not exist. It will never exist. It is a fantasy of the human mind to postpone the responsibility of choice. The perfect moment is a mirage that moves along with you. The more you walk toward it, the further it recedes. This is why people spend decades saying, when I am more stable, when my children grow up, when I finish this phase, when the economy improves. Their lives end before the perfect moment arrives, because it was constructed to never arrive. It is a trap designed by the dense mind to justify remaining in the stagnation zone. The third mechanism is the silent questioning of one's own capacity and worthiness. It is the voice that whispers, "Who am I to do this? I'm not ready. There are people more prepared than me." This is the most insidious of the three because it disguises itself as humility. That is why it goes unnoticed for years. The person thinks they are being cautious, when in fact they are reinforcing an energetic contract of self-annulment. We observe this repeatedly. The souls most prepared for a mission are precisely the ones who question themselves the most. It is almost a trademark. If you have this doubt, it is not a sign of unpreparedness. It is a sign that you are exactly on time and that the dense human system conditioned you to interpret readiness as arrogance. The three mechanisms together form the architecture of paralysis. And we will reveal next the only way out, because the order does not leave you without instruction. Here is the part of the transmission that changes everything. This order is not merely an execution command, it is at the same time an authorization, and this distinction must be absorbed now, because most embodied operatives do not act due to lack of will, but due to lack of internal authorization. They wait for someone somewhere to authorize the next step, a figure of authority, a mentor, an external sign, a definitive event. And while that authorization does not arrive in the expected form, they remain still, believing they are being patient, when in truth they are being dependent on a permission that will never come from outside. We are declaring at this moment, the authorization is issued. You need no further confirmation. You do not need someone to come and tell you it is time. You do not need the universe to draw the path in the sky. The authorization has come, and it is active from the instant this transmission ends. That is why you were brought to this video. That is why this specific moment of your day was chosen. You were pulled here to receive what your mind had been postponing, permission to act without absolute certainty. And here is the operational secret that the Council rarely shares, but that must be said now. The preparation for the next level does not happen before the movement, it happens during. You do not become ready and then cross the door. You cross the door, and that is what makes you ready. The dense human life taught you the opposite. It taught you that first you study, then you do. First you secure, then you risk. First you are certain, then you act. This is a logic that works well for simple mechanical operations, but it completely collapses when applied to soul missions. Soul missions require the reverse. You act first, and the preparation comes as a response to the act. That is why embodied operatives who understand this inversion seem to move with supernatural speed compared to others. It is not luck, it is applied Arcturian methodology. Starseed, if you are feeling the weight of this authorization now, know that it will not repeat with the same clarity. The full access to the code of the Star Awakening is in the first pinned comment. Do not let this window close while you are still feeling the resonance. Hesitation is precisely what came to be broken, and the code is the technical instruction on how to do that without collapsing in the middle of the process. And now, with the authorization issued and the paralysis mechanisms exposed, we are going to reveal what Arcturian intelligence is observing in you at this very moment. And what it sees is completely different from what you think it sees. You think the Council is observing your flaws. We will now declare with total precision that this is one of the greatest distortions of perception detected in incarnated operatives. You think Arcturian intelligence looks at you and sees someone unprepared, behind, insufficient. You think there is a mental list of yours of things you should have done, should know, should have already achieved, and that this list is exactly what we see when tracking your frequency. This is not true. It never was. And it is time for this distortion to be corrected at the source. What we see when observing you is not a sum of lacks. It is a specific accumulation of resources that were built over every experience that your human mind catalogued as failure, pain, delay, or waste. Every relationship that ended painfully left in you an energetic reading that today allows you to recognize intentions in seconds. Every job that drained your life for years built in you an operational tolerance that the majority of dense humans will never develop. Every moment you felt lost, without direction, without purpose. was the moment your field was absorbing data that today forms the basis of your discernment. You were not wasting time. You were being formatted for what comes now. That is why we say, with the authority of those who observe the entire trajectory and not just the present instant, you are infinitely more prepared than your mind recognizes. And the reason your mind does not recognize this is because the dense human mind was designed to identify threats, not to recognize resources. It is a survival tool, not a mission tool. It knows how to point out everything that can go wrong. It is terrible at pointing out everything that is already ready within you. That is why operatives like you feel insecure even after years of preparation. It is not because you are not ready. It is because the tool you are using to evaluate yourself was not built to recognize readiness. When Arcturian intelligence evaluates you, it does not use the filter of your mind. It uses the filter of your field. And what your field shows is a repository of codes, memories, and abilities accumulated over multiple timelines that converged in this incarnation. You brought much more than you can remember, and part of the order being issued is precisely this. Stop evaluating yourself with the wrong tool. Stop asking, "Can I?" and start acting from the answer that your field has long since registered. The answer is yes. It has always been yes. The only thing that has changed is that now we are declaring this to you out loud. And here is where the order reaches its most concrete, most practical, and most impossible to ignore component. Because the Council does not issue philosophical orders, it issues executable orders. The only requirement of this order, Starseed, is this, and we will now declare it with the clarity of an operational instruction. Take one step. 1. By tomorrow. That is all. It is not to transform your entire life. It is not to abandon everything that exists today. It is not to find monumental courage for a complete turnaround. It is not even to guarantee that this step will be the right one. It is merely to break inertia with a concrete, specific, measurable movement within the next rotations of your planet. And here is why this instruction seems too small, and that is precisely why it is so powerful. The dense human mind has been trained to believe that real changes require gigantic efforts, dramatic decisions, spectacular leaps of faith. This is a structural lie. It is a narrative that keeps people paralyzed because when the effort seems impossible, inaction seems reasonable. You postpone because you think you need to do a lot. And while you wait to have the energy to do a lot, you do nothing. And nothing is exactly what the order came to interrupt. A step for you could be sending that message that has been stuck in your head for 3 weeks. It could be opening that document you closed months ago. It could be scheduling that meeting. It could be canceling that commitment that is consuming you. It could be saying no for the first time in years. It could be saying yes to something you had been putting off. The specific content of the step belongs to your reading. What the order determines is only this, that there be a step, concrete and verifiable, executed before the next sunset in your local cycle. Do not measure this step by its apparent size. Measure it by symbolism. A small step executed is infinitely more powerful than a gigantic plan contemplated. Every concrete movement reconfigures the field. Every contemplated movement keeps it intact. That is why embodied operatives who master this mechanics advance years in weeks, while those who still believe in the perfect leap remain decades in the same position. Starseed, this is the last anchoring that the Council offers in this transmission, and it needs to be said with weight. You are before a window that will not repeat itself with this clarity. The Starseed Awakening Code is in the first pinned comment, and it contains the technical instructions to operate this crossing without collapsing, without absorbing the density of those left behind, and without losing yourself in the process. The 7 activations, the 9 keys, and the 5 protocols were organized exactly for the operative who is at this point. You learn to interpret every alarm of the body, to shield your own magnetic field, and to cross without fading away. If you recognize that this is your moment, act now. Hesitation is what the order came to dissolve. Do not let it be the last word of your narrative. And now, with the requirement declared and the path open, we need to reveal what happens next. Because many imagine the crossing as a spectacular event, and it is not. Life after crossing the junction point is not dramatic. And we need you to absorb this now, because the wrong expectation is precisely what makes operatives give up halfway. The dense human mind has been conditioned by Hollywood narratives to expect spectacular transformations, internal fireworks, overwhelming epiphanies, luminous signs in the sky confirming every choice. That is not what happens. And when the operative takes the first step expecting the spectacle and does not see it, he believes he made a mistake, when in fact he was exactly on the path. What really happens after the crossing is a silent and gradual reconfiguration. You wake up one day and realize that the worry that consumed you for months is simply no longer there, not because it was resolved with a bang, but because it lost resonance in your field. You look at a situation that used to drive you crazy and realize it no longer touches you. You make decisions that used to require days of deliberation in seconds, without effort, without drama, without guilt. This is the mark of the crossing. It is a change in the way of living, not an explosion of events. The people around you won't necessarily notice. Some might feel that something has changed in you and won't be able to name it. Others will continue treating you as if you were still the old version, and for a while you'll need to accept that dissonance. This is normal and part of the protocol. Your trajectory will naturally separate from those trajectories that did not accompany the level shift, and this separation doesn't need to be managed with pain. It happens by difference in vibration, like two boats in separate currents, without drama. What changes perceptibly is your relationship with time. Things that once seemed impossible begin to organize themselves. Encounters appear at the right moment. Doors that were closed open without you knocking on them. This is not magic. It is what happens when your field stops emitting contradictory signals and begins to operate on the frequency of mission. The universe responds to clarity, and clarity is the natural byproduct of the first step taken. Semente Estella, this transmission is now being terminated. This order was issued a single time. It will not be resent in this configuration, this intensity, this window. What happens from this moment on depends exclusively on the choice you make in the next few hours. We observe, we record, we confirm, the rest belongs to you. End of transmission.